It's so complicated, convoluted, chaotic. It's hard to actually figure out what's what, but it's becoming clearer.
Firms on retainer. I don't know how much money is coming in, but I know that a lot of money is going out every single month for Diddy.
Shakur, the rap legend the world thought was lost in 1996, has allegedly been alive and in hiding for nearly 30 years. And now shocking new reports suggest he's ready to return with evidence that could bring two of hip-hop's most powerful mogul, Jay-Z and Diddy, to their knees. We're not talking about another wild internet rumor, some greener photo from a distant beach, or another guy in a bandana spotted in Havana. We're talking about whispers from law enforcement, sudden interest from the FBI, and a new round of sources insisting the game is about to change. Not with an album drop, but with a takedown.
I felt like, they had a whole lot of potential. Jay was more quiet. But I mean, I learned that Jay was being quiet because he was taking notes. He was taking notes, observing everything, taking it all in, because, sometimes you're around and you're watching to see things to do.
For decades, the world believed the Vegas drive-by was the end of Shakur. For bullets, a frantic hospital, then that infamous 6 days in limbo before the media declared him gone. Yet here we are nearly 3 decades later, and the chessboard looks nothing like we thought. While Jay-Z and Diddy fight for their lives in courtrooms and headlines, out comes a rumor so destabilizing the word comeback suddenly feels too small. The story is simple, yet almost unthinkable. Shakur didn't just disappear. He outplayed everyone. He vanished into the shadows, yes, but not to escape. Instead, to gather the kind of evidence that could torch the careers and reputations of the very men suspected of engineering his vanishing act. And if the latest leaks are even half true, the FBI has finally tracked him down. Not to cuff him, but to flip the entire script on Jay-Z and Diddy, just as their own empires start to buckle under the weight of lawsuits and fresh indictment.
I heard that no one really wanted to sign him when you were shopping him around the record labels. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This was, I want to say, 90, 91 maybe. We was, we recorded some songs, probably about 4 or 5 songs on Jay-Z, and shopped them to several different record labels, and they all passed.
It's not just online noise this time. Reports are coming in from deep inside the music industry and federal circles. The kind of people who don't usually gossip unless they've got the paperwork to back it up. According to several well-placed insiders, federal agents have allegedly reached out to Shakur himself or someone acting on his behalf to secure hard evidence, documents, phone recordings, financial trails, even surveillance tapes that could connect Jay-Z and Diddy, not just to shady business, but directly to the orchestration of the infamous Vegas shooting that changed hip-hop forever. And here's where things go from maybe to, oh no, this is real. These same sources claim that sealed evidence from the 1990s, once thought lost or destroyed, has been cross-referenced with brand new intel, allegedly delivered by none other than Shakur or his inner circle. The FBI is suddenly far less interested in chasing lost ends and much more interested in who's been living quietly, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. Imagine it. Shakur watching for decades as Diddy and Jay-Z amassed wealth, power, and a myth of invincibility, knowing all along that their rise was built atop the same blood-stained chessboard that forced him into exile. For years, we've seen the headlines pile up against these moguls. Diddy's mounting legal troubles, human trafficking indictments, the allegations of a shadowy criminal enterprise running through his entire empire. Jay-Z's sudden appearance in new lawsuits, desperate to distance himself from Diddy's scandals, even as his own name surfaces in those late-night court filings. It's like watching a house of cards that took 30 years to build finally tremble. And then, right on cue, the ghost everyone tried to bury reappears with the matchbook in his hand.
I think that they don't want, if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions, they don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their brain.
We have to talk about the Cuba connection because this isn't just a detail. It's the spine of the whole conspiracy. Remember all those rumors, the grainy nightclub footage, the anonymous local in Havana swearing he saw Shakur buying groceries, the YouTube clips showing someone in a hoodie, a goatee, sunglasses just a little too familiar. For years, most of it sounded like wishful thinking, fans clinging to a legend. But then a former bodyguard, Michael Nice, went on record. "I have audio and video evidence of Fidel Castro confirming he sanctioned Shakur to live in Cuba." Did Castro himself orchestrate a double switch, a faked body, a getaway flight involving Black Panthers and bribes to hospital officials? Nice even described a covert escape complete with handshakes on a Barbados air strip before Shakur vanished again. This time for good under the protection of a regime that hated the same American establishment he did.
Boy, Puffy called me though. Puffy called me back in the day. He called me. He was like, "I just want you to know I ain't have nothing to do with your brother's."
Here's where the emotional weight of the story crashes in. Imagine the betrayal Shakur must have felt, realizing his closest friends and collaborators, men who built their fortunes alongside him, might have ordered the hit that left him bleeding in Vegas. Imagine the patience it takes to spend 3 decades in hiding, watching from afar as your enemies prosper, planning the kind of revenge that only works if you wait until every last piece is in place. If the whispers were right, Shakur didn't just flee for survival. He took his exile and turned it into leverage, stockpiling what insiders now call a treasure trove of intelligence on the very men whose names became synonymous with untouchable. According to people with ties to old-school Black Panther networks, Shakur spent years in tight, protected conditions, almost imprisoned but never powerless, exchanging secrets for sanctuary.
Let's talk about it, man. So you feel like it was bigger than Orlando shooting Pac. You feel like it's more to the story. You don't think it was that simple.
I feel like it's big.
What really turns up the heat is the timing. Why now? Why, after all these years, would Shakur choose this exact moment to step out of the shadows? The answer, it seems, is as ruthless as it is logical. Jay-Z and Diddy have never been this vulnerable. Diddy's world is collapsing in real time. Multiple lawsuits lured headlines about freak-off parties. Former employees finally breaking their NDS to describe what they saw. He's sitting in a Brooklyn detention center denied bail, facing charges so severe even his legendary bankroll can't buy him out. Meanwhile, Jay-Z, once the Teflon billionaire who floated above every scandal, is suddenly entangled in a lawsuit with accusations so explosive his legal team is scrambling to have the case dismissed before his name becomes as radioactive as Diddy's. For years, these two operated as allies, business partners, and sometimes rivals, but always as men who knew where the bodies were buried, even if they never had to get their hands dirty.
As far as, is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life. With all the charges he won't get out until 70 years old. He about 70. That's when they start talking about letting him come to a halfway house.
Now, with the FBI hunting for new witnesses and desperate for a way to turn the page on unsolved crimes, the perfect moment arrives. Suddenly, Shakur's alleged evidence isn't just about personal vengeance. It's about leverage, justice, maybe even a shot at redemption for himself, his mother's legacy, and the entire music industry that watched him disappear. Insiders whisper that federal agents are connecting dots across decades. Phone records from the 90s resurfacing in new court filings, sealed testimony matching up with mysterious, previously undisclosed recordings. In the old days, the code of the street was to keep your mouth shut. But with Keith D., the last living suspect in the 1996 drive-by behind bars, allegedly ready to cut a deal to save his own skin, and Suge Knight tweeting from prison about justice for Shakur, it feels like the age of silence is finally over.
Yes, on your own platform. He said this on your platform that he put up $1 million to get Pac in.
Yeah, correct. He was around Puffy and Puffy made a comment when they was around, yeah.
Of course, nobody is forgetting the rumors about Jay-Z's role. And this is where things get ice cold. For years, everyone assumed Diddy was the mastermind, the money man, the only one ruthless enough to sign off on a $1 million bounty for 2 rivals. But lately, new claims are circulating. Some sourced from old industry accountants, others from cryptic remarks made by investigators. Supposedly, financial records have turned up showing Jay-Z's associates wiring funds to names now implicated in the Vegas operation. Intercepted calls from the months before Shakur vanished have allegedly been cross-referenced with Jay-Z's known whereabouts, painting a picture of someone who is less a bystander and more a silent partner, waiting in the wings to inherit the empire after Shakur was out of the way. Is it possible that the kingmaker everyone idolized, the the man who toasted billionaire brunches with Diddy, who rebuilt the industry after the chaos, was quietly pulling the strings all along? The whispers aren't just coming from angry exes or jealous rivals. Former security contractors, a few ex-death row insiders, and even one or two retired agents now hint at unresolved anomalies in Jay-Z's timeline around the Vegas shooting. Could it be that the music mogul who climbed higher than anyone in hip-hop history owes his crown to a scheme even darker than we realized? The stakes, it seems, have never been higher. If Shakur truly has the evidence he claims, if he's ready to hand it to the feds, then the world isn't just waiting for a new chapter. We're staring down the possible collapse of hip-hop's most powerful dynasty.
I don't think they are scared of him. I think they more so, they don't want him to embarrass their reputation and things that they've been known for. You understand?
We've heard wild stories before. Shakur seen in Havana. Shakur spotted at a nightclub in Vice. Shakur posing with Beyoncé in a photo that definitely looks like a Photoshop special. But this time, it's the context that changes everything. Diddy's world is already on fire. A criminal indictment, lurid tales of coerced freak-off parties, decades of pay-to-play allegations. The media calls him hip-hop's Jeffrey Epstein with his own Gia running the books. Meanwhile, Jay-Z's lawyers fight a desperate rearguard action, slinging accusations of blackmail, challenging the credibility of his accuser, filing motion after motion to delay the inevitable. The two men who once stood shoulder to shoulder at the Rock Nation brunch now appear to be running for cover separately. And maybe for the first time genuinely afraid.
If that's part of the indictment, that's somewhat like a blackmail. He was blackmailing people to be in the freak-offs. So that's federal. That could be that's a federal charge. He can't blackmail people to say, yo, listen here, you did it once and you're gonna do it again. That ain't gonna make it with the government or nobody.
All the while, the old clues start to look different. Suge Knight's cryptic interviews. Shaker's mother talking about her son choosing to leave quietly. The Posthumous album's The Machiavelli persona. Machiavelli the strategist who faked his own demise to defeat his enemies. Every detail is suddenly alive with new meaning. Why did the coroner's report get so many basic facts wrong? Why did the man who handled Shocker's cremation retire the next day and never reappear? Why did locals in Old Havana keep reporting sightings of a famous American rapper? Even years after the world moved on, with the FBI now reportedly sifting through every fragment of evidence from the case, surveillance tapes, payment logs, confidential informant notes, the walls are closing in. The truth is, the hip-hop industry was always built on the tension between myth and reality. But in this case, the lines have blurred so thoroughly that what used to sound like delusion now reads like a blueprint. Jay-Z and Diddy, for all their legendary success, are suddenly prisoners of a past they thought was buried in the Nevada desert. Meanwhile, somewhere in the shadows, maybe in a Cuban apartment, maybe just off camera, waiting for the right moment, a legend watches the empire that tried to erase him finally begin to crumble. And now with the FBI in his corner, evidence mounting, and his old enemies finally exposed, we all have to ask if Shakur is alive. If he really does have the goods, what's about to happen to hip-hop's so-called untouchables?
And mad still that my brother. First of all, that's the...
Because one thing is certain, if even a fraction of these rumors pan out, the fallout won't stop at Diddy or Jay-Z. Already whispers circulate about dozens of accomplices, lawyers, assistants, managers, even former bodyguards suddenly being subpoenaed or quietly taking vacations overseas. Industry veterans who once lived like royalty are now deleting social accounts, ditching old phones, trying to erase every connection to the scandal before the feds come calling. The old code of silence is cracked, and everyone knows it. As the industry braces for a reckoning, and as every headline seems to bring another leak, one question hangs over everything. How many careers, fortunes, and legacies will be swept away before the dust finally settles?
But I'm still a little suspicious about the timing and how it's all...
And now, as the dominoes begin to fall, the world watches the unraveling of an empire that once felt eternal. We're not just talking about a couple of superstars caught in scandal. We're witnessing the slow-motion collapse of the very institutions that define the past 30 years of pop culture. Diddy, the king of the all-white party, now finds himself in a concrete cell instead of a Hamptons mansion, awaiting a federal trial that could drag every dirty secret of the industry into the light. Human trafficking, racketeering, alleged abuse, and the chilling phrase criminal enterprise follow his name in every headline, while his legal team burns through dollars trying to plug the leaks. Every time another lawsuit lands, we see more enablers scrambling to cut deals and more victims stepping forward. No one's sure who will flip next or how many secret files are waiting to see daylight. For a man who used to control the narrative with a single tweet or a flashy video, Diddy suddenly can't buy a moment of silence.
Now, I ain't trying to say that's some kind of conspiracy and maybe some other shit was going on or this, that, and the third. But brother, he had that conversation with K. Slade 2 weeks before he was murdered.
Meanwhile, Jay-Z, the blueprint for Mogulum, is discovering that even the highest penthouse comes with a glass floor. Civil suits pile up, each one with the potential to tear open years of protected business records and private conversations. The legal filings alone are enough to keep any crisis manager awake at night. But what's worse is the public mood. The fans who once cheered for his every power move are now dissecting timelines, lyrics, and old photos, hunting for the moment where fortune crossed the line into conspiracy. Jay-Z's defense is a mix of legal bravado and counter-accusations. One moment painting himself as the target of blackmail, the next distancing himself from a partner he used to call brother. If Shocker's cache of evidence ever surfaces, it could rewrite every sanitized version of hip-hop history that Jay-Z has ever sold. And there's not a brand consultant on earth who can restore that shine. Imagine the aftershocks if this scenario explodes. The two men who once seemed untouchable, billionaires with their own beverage lines, global fashion labels, a combined web of influence stretching from Wall Street to the White House, suddenly revealed as the architects of a betrayal that shaped the fate of music and black culture itself. We're not talking about tabloid drama or another celebrity flameout. We're talking about the kind of revelation that could wipe out entire catalogs, force award shows to rewrite history, and leave corporate sponsors racing for the exits. Decades of mentorship, charitable foundations, and carefully curated legacy projects could vanish in an instant, replaced by the ugly truth behind the headlines. And if that truth arrives on the back of Shocker's long-awaited return, there won't be a label or media conglomerate on Earth ready for the fallout.
Down. That's one reason other than the Irv Gotti that 50 was going through and the poison they was putting in about 50, he had to go elsewhere to California or with Jay and not with Dre and Eminem to get a deal.
Even the people who always claim to know the real story are starting to sweat. Former road managers are suddenly unavailable for comment. High-profile attorneys leaked to the press that multiple celebrities are under active investigation, while private jets fly in and out of Miami and LA, full of publicists and crisis experts who can't guarantee anything. The old alliances that once held the music business together, the handshakes and dark corners, the I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine favors are dissolving in the face of subpoenas and secret recordings. And for everyone who grew up believing these men were untouchable, the mood is whiplash. Betrayal cuts deeper when the idols fall from this high. All of it leads back to the chilling sense that Shakur saw it coming. For years, fans had dissected his Mabelli persona. The cryptic lyrics, the hidden messages, the album covers that seemed to wink at those paying close attention. Exit Shakur. Enter Maveli. Read the liner notes of the Don Nazi the 7-Day Theory released after his supposed demise. The name itself a nod to Niccolò Machiavelli, the Italian strategist who wrote about faking your own demise to confuse your enemies and return stronger than ever. Was this just poetic theater or a roadmap to survival? What if every track, every cryptic interview was a veiled threat to those who tried to erase him?
Tell me, man, why do you believe that Jay and Puffy is close, even though Jay's lawyer came out and said they're not?
Because Jay-Z and Puff was given an assignment.
The clues are everywhere, hiding in plain sight. Lyrics about betrayal, lines that reference coming back for revenge, images that play with the boundary between legend and reality. In one infamous photo, Shocker's eyes seem to follow us, as if daring us to see past the illusion. Even the rumors that refuse to fade away, the supposed sighting in Havana, the whispered confession from Suge Knight, the bodyguard's claims of audio and video evidence showing Castro's involvement all fit together if you squint. For years, the skeptics pointed to the logic gaps in the official narrative, the bizarre coroner's report, the vanishing witnesses, The posthumous albums that seemed too prescient was Shakur sending a message to his enemies. Was the entire Machiavelli arc a code for "I'm not finished yet"? That's the terrifying possibility now gripping the industry. If Shakur orchestrated his own escape, then every assumption about that infamous night in Vegas falls apart. Was the shootout staged? Were the hospital scenes manipulated? Was his disappearance the biggest piece of performance art in music history? Or the last desperate move of a man who knew the walls were closing in? Even the skeptics who mocked the Cuba rumors are revisiting old footage, looking for the detail they missed. The one that flips the whole story upside down.
Open Door, they laid the blueprint for me, and they're not here anymore. So I always want to make sure that, through me, what I'm saying, through all of us, that.
Open Door. They laid the blueprint for me, and they're not here anymore. So I always want to make sure that through me, you know what I'm saying? Through all of us. So you know that. And what about the impact on hip-hop itself? The legacy of Shakur versus Biggie, West Coast versus East Coast, was supposed to be a story of artistic rivalry, not a blood-soaked cover-up. Now, as Diddy's world implodes and Jay-Z's name is dragged through federal court filings, we're left to ask whether the roots of modern hip-hop are tangled in a plot even darker than the lyrics ever hinted. It's not just about who did what. It's about who knew, who stayed silent, and who profited while the rest of the world mourned. And let's not forget the chilling silence coming from those who spent years on top. Beyoncé and other A-list collaborators, once eager to stand side by side with Jay-Z and Diddy at charity galas and award shows, are now noticeably quiet. The mobile social circles, once full of party invitations and photo ops, have shrunk to a handful of nervous loyalists. The music media, which for years tiptoed around controversy, is finally reporting with teeth, digging through old contracts, exposing payoffs, and interviewing people who spent decades too afraid to speak. There's no script for how to survive a storm like this, especially when the legend you helped erase is possibly returning with receipts.
Dead Bang and I was Big Man. That was the extent of our beef.
Dead Bang and I was Big Man. That was the extent of our beef. Insiders point to a growing sense of dread at the major labels. Some believe the FBI is preparing for a wave of indictments that will reach far beyond Diddy and Jay-Z. The agencies are connecting dots across time zones and offshore accounts, piecing together a puzzle that could ensnare producers, handlers, even executives who thought their roles would stay forever in the shadows. As a former Def Jam manager put it, if Pac has the tapes and the feds have the leverage, it's going to be a bloodbath in the boardrooms. The fear isn't just about public shame. It's about entire fortunes built on illusions that are now cracking wide open. And then there's a final question, the one nobody can answer. If Shakur does step into the light, evidence in hand, what happens to the meaning of everything that's come before? Do we erase Diddy and Jay-Z from the pantheon? Do we celebrate Shakur as the ultimate survivor or interrogate the cost of his silence? Or does this all turn out to be one more illusion, the last twist from a man who made his name, blurring reality and myth until we couldn't tell the difference?
Named Diddy 77 times in court documents related to Tupac's.
The FBI's renewed interest, Jay-Z's mounting legal woes, Diddy's empire melting under the spotlight, and the persistent whispers of Shaker's return. It all feels like the stage is set for hip-hop's ultimate reckoning. We may be days, weeks, or months away from an explosion that will make the original East Coast, West Coast war look tame by comparison. Or maybe we're still trapped in the labyrinth Shakur built, chasing shadows while the real answers hide in a vault in Havana or a briefcase in a federal safe house. One thing's for sure, the truth is coming and nothing will ever be the same. So, what do you think? Is this a final act for the old guard, or is there another twist waiting to shock us all? Drop your theories below, because the next bombshell could drop at any moment. Until then, stay sharp, stay curious, and keep your eyes on the story because hip-hop history is about to be rewritten and nobody gets out unscathed. Thanks for watching, legends. We'll see you on the other.